Alright, today we're going to do video 6 on ocean habitats and zones, and we're actually going to start video 6 by doing a KWL. What do you know? What do you want to know and learn? And we're going to do it by listening to this song, 200 Meters Down. And I asked you to glue a copy of the lyrics in your notebook on page 149. So we're going to use this kind of process as you listen to the words. You're going to follow along. You're going to circle all the vocabulary that you don't know. You are going to underline words that you're not quite sure of. I've heard of it, but I'm not quite sure I could tell you the definition, but I think I might know it. And then by anything you would like to learn about, and it could be some of these unknowns or these things you're not sure about, add an exclamation point that you want to learn about it. And so we're going to start by, again, we're going to listen to the song. This is a guy over at NC State, and he has taken lots of different science concepts, and he is a talented musician, and he has written lyrics to some tunes. So we're going to listen to, he goes by the name I Am Lodge, and this is called 200 Meters Down.
Just tiny algae and it's floating right. What about the lectin like jellyfish? They swim around and survive, moving through the water column while the benthos crawl by. Diving, you're heading for the open ocean tribe. As you may, you cannot see the sunlight. Oh, 200 meters down, searching for some warmth from a hydrothermal situation where bubbles come from cracks in ocean floors. Oh, see the crabs and the worms. Your bioluminescence gives you light in deeper zones. On the rocky shores are pounding waves where salinity and the temperatures change, mixing river water to get estuaries. Those mangrove trees protect us, please, better than marshes of salt from the Bay of the Chesapeake. Diving, you're heading for the open ocean track. As you may, you cannot see the sunlight. Oh, 200 meters down, searching for some warmth from a hydrothermal situation where bubbles come from cracks in ocean floors. Oh, see the crabs and the worms. Your bioluminescence gives you light in deeper zones. Go through the surface zone, yeah, zone. Through the transition zone. Now you're almost home. La 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 la. We started into tidal and went meridic. Here's shallow, shallow water, lots of plants in it. Most ocean life comes here to eat. On the coral reef, in the sunlight and warmth, or the kelp forest cold water by the rocky floors. Diving, you're heading for the open ocean tribe. As you may, you cannot see the sunlight. Oh, 200 meters down, searching for some warmth from a hydrothermal situation where bubbles come from cracks in ocean floors. Oh, see the crabs and the worms. Your bioluminescence gives you light in deeper zones.
Alright, we're going to pause just a moment, and we're going to talk about some of the things you found that you knew, some of the things you found that you want to know, and some of the things you think you may or may not know. So we're going to go through and find out what you circled, underlined, and put an exclamation point beside. So let's pause here for a second. Alright, so as you can see, some of the words in our song are right here immediately on the first slide. We've got intertidal, neritic, and open ocean. The thing to remember, and if you remember Blue Planet from last week, The ocean is a huge community of living and non-living things. We've talked about the ocean chemistry, about the salts that are dissolved in the water. We've talked about how cold water is more dense than the warm water. We've talked about the currents. We've talked about upwellings where dead plant and animal matter gets brought up into the water column, and that acts as fertilizer for the plants in the water column or the plant-like algae in the water column, and that begins to grow and rapidly, and then the small animal like organisms and small fish will come, and then the larger will come, and it's all interrelated. And the habitat zones of the ocean are divided by a couple of things. They're divided by how, or classified by how organisms in the ocean move and where they live in the ocean. Do they live at the surface? Do they swim freely wherever they want in the ocean, or do they live at the bottom? So the first thing I want you to think about is if you're looking out on the beach and you're thinking about where the water comes up and touches your toes on the edge of the beach, and I want you to think about where that level of water would end at low tide. How far back down it would go, and then how far will it come back up at the peak of high tide. That is called the intertidal zone. And so there are organisms that live in the intertidal zone. Some burrow down in the sand. If it's a rocky beach, some are attached to the rocks. So they have to be adapted to being underwater part of the time, out of the water part of the time. So there's going to be some extreme temperature differences, especially in the summer and the winter if you're in and out of water. There's going to be where are you getting your oxygen or carbon dioxide from if you're out of the water. So there's going to be some real issues. They are very sturdy, strong creatures that can live in the intertidal zone because its environment is constantly changing, in fact, 4 times a day. Then we have the neritic zone. So when you go past the zone, so from the edge of low tide line out to where the ocean drops off, remember the continental slope where there's the drop off, that would be the neritic zone. So it's, maybe deeper than pool water, but it's not at your great many mile depths of the ocean. And then you have the open ocean zone where the continental slope, you drop off, you're on the deep ocean floor. And again, that can vary in depths. We know that. We know there's trenches and some features that make certain parts of the ocean floor much deeper. So off our coastline, the open ocean zone probably starts about 23 miles from shore. In each zone, there are distinct physical factors, such as how much sunlight penetrates the water. And remember our water column here. So does it get full sunlight through the surface zone? Does it get filtered sunlight through the transitional zone? Or does it get no sunlight when you're talking about the deep zone? And obviously the intertidal zone is going to get sunlight all the way through from top to bottom. The neritic is probably going to get sunlight and filtered sunlight depending how deep the neritic zone gets. And then in the open ocean, you're going to have all these different light zones because of the depth of the water. So the temperature is also going to vary because depending on how much sunlight the water is absorbing, it's going to depend on its temperature. And water pressure. The farther down you go, water is very heavy, and that weight of water pushes down and creates this incredible amount of pressure the deeper you go. So these are the factors that are going to determine which organism lives where. And again, organisms in the ocean are classified by where they live and how they move. So the first zone is the plankton habitat zone. And the planktons are what I call the go with the flow organisms. They are not attached. They do not swim against the water, against the currents and the tides. They just go with the flow. They're usually very small. So they're your microscopic algae. They're your krill, which are your very small shrimp. They're small jellyfish. They're the very young crustaceans before they've reached maturity. And small fish, and sometimes you'll hear them referred to as minnows. That just means small fish. So they float and move with the waves and currents. They're really not strong enough swimmers to swim against the currents. Phyto means plant, and phytoplankton are the algae and the diatoms that act as the producers in the food chain of the ocean. And then zooplankton would be the microscopic animals in the food chain. And you can see I've got some pictures. These glassy looking microbes over here are diatoms, and they're one of the plant-like planktons. And this is krill, which is a very small shrimp. Nekton are the classification of large fish and mammals and reptiles. They can move freely. They can probably not going to live in the intertidal zone once they get to adulthood, but they can live definitely in the neritic zone. They can live out in the open ocean. They can descend to deeper waters. They can descend to the surface. Think about dolphins and whales as they leap in and out of the water. And so these are your large fish, your marine mammals, your reptiles, your sea turtles, sea snakes. They are very strong swimmers. They can go where they want to go in the ocean. Then you have your benthos, and benthos live on the seafloor. They can live on the seafloor of the intertidal zone. They can live on the seafloor of the neritic zone. They can live on the seafloor of the deep abyssal plains, the abyssal zone of the deep open ocean. So, but they live way down. Some benthos can move freely. Lobsters, sea stars, crabs. They can skitter around and go where they want in the bottom of the ocean floor. But some are attached, like sea anemones, and you can see sea anemones in the middle picture, corals, and sponges. And we're going to pause right there, and then I have 2 videos for you to see to show you some of these organisms.